I don't know. German guy that was
Victor?
like very involved in the nuclear program that has a similar name to
Oppenheimer?
Heimerdinger. No, different one.
Welcome to Afterthoughts. This is the podcast where we watch something and we will give you your thoughts.
Nice.
Yep.
We will tell you what you believe.
We will tell you.
That's right.
We will tell you what to
In
believe.
this new America, we're changing our political strategy.
No. You folks at home, you're the greatest, and when you turn, we won't hate you. But we'll get into it. I am your host tonight, Ryan King, and joining me we have John Garcia.
Hey, Ryan. This is a first in terms of episodes, I feel like, because I don't remember having to binge like 9 hours of content before for a thing. Aside from like all of the marathons we've run before.
We did Joe Pera once.
Yeah, that's true. But Joe Pera's like 10 minutes each. That's like a movie's worth.
Those do go quick.
That's true. Yeah. But
how long did it take us to watch all three Tetsuos like back to back?
Oh, God. It's the same. It's probably the same.
The other voice joining us there, we have Michael Dixon.
What's going on? I spent 6 hours and 20 minutes over the past 3 nights watching this show, and I could have watched 3 movies instead.
Is that how long it was? 6 hours and 25 minutes? Man.
5 hours, 56 minutes.
Somehow I stretched it out even more.
I don't know if that includes Imagine Dragons songs or outros.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't have watched the Imagine Dragons song so many times.
It's actually pretty short. Yes, we are talking about Arcane. We're talking about just season 1.
When I was a kid, me and my sister, we played a game where we pretended to chase monsters away. I'd say, no monster's gonna get you when I'm here. Then a real monster showed up. I have to find her.
The world's growing smaller every day. Up there on the surface, the topsiders are leaving the undercity further behind.
I believe I've discovered something incredible. A way to harness magic through science.
You don't understand what's at stake.
Power doesn't come to those who are born strongest. It comes to those who will do anything to achieve it. Imagining yourself a hero. Then what are you waiting for?
There are 3 episodes of season 2 at the point that we're talking about this. I haven't watched them. I don't think you guys have watched them.
No.
So we're not going to talk about that. But we will talk about Arcane. I will say in order to talk about it, we're going to talk about it. So if you don't want to be spoiled or you're thinking about watching it, go ahead and just go watch it.
Hey,
6
wait,
hours.
you can't hijack this council.
Yeah, that's my recommendation. I won't say much here before I hand it to you guys because I already talked about this prior. It was my favorite thing the year it came out, best thing I saw. I think it's interesting to talk about it because it's amazing how horrible video game movie adaptations are.
Yep.
And I think this is one of the early examples of how good television video game adaptations can be. Mm-hmm. And in particular, this one is based on a property that is a game with game mechanics and not a game that has a story. Not that they're fully like making this up as they go, but they're mostly making it up as they go. So I think it's kind of an interesting dip into someone trying to take a franchise and make something way more out of it than what it is.
Yeah, compared to like The Last of Us, which has already an engrossing story and
right,
other that are kind of baked and ready to be.
It had
harvested.
a narrative in the game, that you could enjoy, but you can't go play League of Legends and learn the story of Arcane.
Nor am I going to.
Yeah. You can get a lot of people to call you a lot of horrible things and a lot of 12-year-olds calling you really, really horrible things. That's the experience you'll have.
I can do that a lot of other ways.
Okay? Hey, don't fetish shame on this podcast, Ryan. Some people are into that.
Yeah.
You know? I'm just saying you can do that. That's up to you if you want to do that. That's out there. So John, this is your first watch all the way through. What was your take?
I enjoyed it up until the very end when it ended on a cliffhanger, which I was very mad about. I think that I've given my 2 cents before on shows that end that way. Where I'm like, there's a lot of ambition, and I'm always frustrated when something ends where I'm like, where is it going to go next? Like, I get kind of mad. I want like a stopping point. Like, I know we've talked about like Infinity War before, whenever Ryan did his like Marvel marathon, and how like I say that would be a perfect end for Marvel, but it's not. But at least that movie ends and like there's no hope at the end of it, and there's nothing to let you know that something could happen next. Like outside of the corporate realm, we already know is going to happen. But here it's like, I don't know. I just saw the ending and I was like, oh, okay, that's what we're doing right now. Which that's like my only negative note, though. The rest of the show, I really fucking enjoyed. Oh, I guess the Imagine Dragons song too is kind of like, okay, come on. Like
when the Imagine Dragons song hit, I was like, oh no, this is the kind of shit we're getting into here. This is not promising.
You see, what's really funny is I remembered hating the Imagine Dragons song before, and then coming back to it when it first started the credits, I was like, oh, they swapped out the Imagine Dragons song. They knew it sucked. Because like the first few notes are like innocently something else. And then it just starts and I was like,
slap you with some Imagine Dragons.
Yeah, and I was like, oh shit. I was wrong. But I loved I like the core cast and character dynamics. I liked the pushing dynamics with them, like the political story that's going on, but also the really interpersonal and connected tragedy of like Vi and Jinx as like sisters. I enjoyed seeing that go back and forth. And at a certain point, when I think like midway through was where I fell off when I first started watching it. And I think that's right around where I was like, I am getting like a little bit tired of some of this character's still here and like, oh, what are you doing? Like people catching up with each other in the future sort of thing. And that's when the animation started to kick in and got like really different for me. And like, there's just a lot of visual dazzling shit that started to happen to kind of build up past that point and carry me through. And it won me over by the end of it. And then that last sequence that happens, I was like, okay, like, I mean, I could watch season 2, I could see watching it, but I was also just frustrated with that part. So that's my overall take on it. I just love the visuals. I like it pushing different visual styles and not just, I don't know, felt like Spider-Verse before Spider-Verse sort of started doing what it was going to do. Across the Spider-Verse sort of did, where it was like all these different mesh and mediums. Here you have like kind of spray paint style, but that's mixed with sort of the cell shading look, like a cleaner cell shade. And the character designs are really rad. The steampunk aspects and the violence in it, like the action sequences are really cool. So overall, I really liked it. Had a good time.
Yeah. Yeah, you said when we were talking about this that you guys were going to escape the Imagine Dragons song, and I didn't tell you that they play it during one part of it so that you're in there.
Yeah.
The musical choices are honestly like there. They didn't really they didn't really try to create something like unique with the music within it. It just is kind of like, hey, here's a song we're playing over this moment. That's probably one of the only things. But there's not a lot of music or a lot of that time that they do that. But
in Wreck-It Ralph, when they play that Rihanna song and it ruins the movie for me.
Yeah, right. Yes. Yeah. The Shut Up and Drive.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a bit like that. That's fair. At least, John, you could turn around and watch another episode, unlike those of us who watch this in 2021 have been waiting fucking years to get any kind of resolution on that moment. Yeah, rewatching it, I was like, oh, thank God I'm going to be able to like move forward and see this again. Because it definitely just really leaves you hanging.
Yeah.
Dixon, what's your overall impression?
Yeah, I am probably going to be the downer here. I was watching it and I was like, surely you have to know something from the video game in order to understand this, right? Like, what am I missing here? But it sounds like that's not the case. But no. I felt like there were, like, it's too long and too short at the same time. And I felt like the story has so many holes in plot and character that I had a lot of problems like just giving a shit about what was happening on screen. I think the animation is incredible when it wants to be. Like the action sequences are great. There's some like quick editing sequences that look really good. there's a lot of really long scenes of people talking and having like boring political conversations.
It's like the early Star Wars, the prequels.
So this feels to me like it was made by a fanboy of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the Star Wars prequels. So just an unholy combination of those things that is better than either of those things. But it's like, let's have a bunch of political conversations and let's find some fucking Iron Man gloves and punch people, and I'm like, okay. Yeah. But there's just like the long scenes of talking felt to me like I was watching like a cutscene from a PlayStation 3 game. I was like, the animation gets lazy when the plot gets lazy, and I'm just like, I got bored visually and story wise at the same times, and I was like, can we just get to the action scenes? Like, I want to be visually stimulated and have something interesting to see. Like, the story just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Like, there's just some magic person that one of the main guys sees as a child out in the wilderness somewhere, and he heals his mom somehow, and then he's like spending his life trying to discover how to make magic out of science, and they don't really ever explain what that is or who these like magic people are that have these abilities. And whenever he talks about like, I can make magic from science, or no, you can't make that, the arcane is something that only people are born with that ability can use, and you can't create that or wield it, or it'll become some sort of unholy powerful thing that you can't harness and get out of hand. But they don't really ever explain like why or what this is, or like what actually do people think is this magic, and how is he trying to replicate it? And so like, I thought all of that was just
most of his scenes are just like hammering something, right?
Yeah, like it was all just kind of brushed past and not talked about. Like that's like the heart of this story is this like development of this technology. The fucking show is named Arcane, and they just mentioned the word like 3 times in the whole show, talking about like, those like magic people. Yeah, we don't really talk about them, but they're the Arcane, and we can't really like deal with that. And I'm like, is there something from the video game that I'm missing here? And like, I was just very confused by all of that. And then like, you're supposed to care about certain relationships in the show, like Vi and Powder / Jinx, like they're being sisters. It's like, it wasn't even clear until almost the very end of the show that they were actual biological sisters. Like, I thought they were just part of this like kind of ragtag group of orphans.
They were the orphan gang.
That, that bartender was, helping
nice
to raise or something.
Guy.
Yeah. And like, they are actually sisters. That makes this have some more resonance. I wish I had known that earlier in
you got to learn to listen, Lou.
But I don't know. I just felt like it was, a lot of it was really boring. The scientist character, I thought, was just like, could not take any scenes with him. I thought he was just so boring. He was just like Mr. Handsome guy that can do everything, and smart, athletic, and never has any problems. But he's like dumb as adult, aside from the fact that he can just make magic into tech. He has no wisdom or practical ability to like process information, and like just gets completely twisted by everyone around him into like do wars and whatever shit.
Right.
But I don't know. I had a lot of issues with it. There were some parts that I really liked. Like, why the fuck is like the lead guy of the council is like Professor Furby or something? And it's like, did he come from? Everyone in the show is a human except for this guy, and nobody looks at him weird. It's like he's like the Yoda of the show, but nobody is like questioning, wait, what the fuck are you? Like, he just walks around in the city and nobody's like, holy shit, there's like a cat that talked to me.
And he's so wise.
Yeah. I don't know. Honestly, I'm not really sure how I felt about this. There are things I liked and things that I really didn't. So
yeah, the only thing that was missing from this show that would have made it better is not better. There's a lot of things, but Werner Herzog would have been great.
Oh,
somewhere in here.
Yes. Oh, as Professor Furby.
Oh yeah,
that would have been incredible.
As Heimerdinger.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's an interesting look at world building in that the show doesn't really spend time trying to do kind of any of the traditional world building. It really is like you're sitting there looking at it, and to the characters there, things make sense or they know what they are, and you either have to piece it together or you just don't know. Obviously, it's thought through. It's just not conveyed to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say, though, to some extent, League of Legends is a game with, I think, like 170 playable characters at this point.
Oh,
Jesus.
It's kind of ridiculous how MOBAs work. There's some aesthetic to the game, but there's definitely like just a wide variety of characters means you have to have a wide variety of design, and they're not all designed by one person. They're teams. It's been years of development. And so there are similarities, and we're kind of with a set of characters that honestly are mostly pretty similar in a city that's mostly pretty similar. Heimerdinger being kind of the one weird other thing. There's some there's some things we see of a couple other, but it's like real quick passes of like a picture in a book or something else that shows some of this other stuff. Arcane is like the hand wave of like magic, and some people do have like innate magical talent, but pretty much everyone we know,
we don't meet anyone that does.
We don't meet any of those people, and this is a city that just uses the magic to harness their technology because they don't really get the magic and they don't have that ability. Again, yeah, none of this is given to you. Honestly, in the game, it's not really given to you either. This is like Magic the Gathering. You have to fucking read all the cards and then go find books and supplemental material to understand like what's going on. And yeah, if you made like a Magic the Gathering movie, you probably would have the same kind of feeling of like, the fuck is all this stuff? Like, who are all of these people?
Yeah.
So I do like that it comes together. The world does feel like a world. That there isn't like the corner, there's nothing there.
Yeah. There are a lot of lively scenes in it. Like the backgrounds are really well thought out. There's a lot of care put into like having background actors in different sequences. Like the bars feel alive. It doesn't feel like we're watching like, you know, 3 people from room to room. What were we talking about? Gladiator. We were talking about Gladiator and how for an epic movie, like there were still scenes that felt a little too small for what was going on, even though they have crowd scenes there. Here I felt like everywhere that they moved, even if it was desolate, there were like sweeping shots of like how vast the city and the pits of like the smaller under the subterranean levels were, that gave you that insignificance that I feel like it made sense why the characters were fucking angry about like the surface dwellers and everything that they did. And they're like militant fascist fucking armies. But like those things I thought were really well done and served like the world building in a sort of subconscious way. Like it's like, okay, cool. I get it. Here's all the characters you would see in the cantina, like Mos Eisley kind of thing. To bring it back to Star Wars.
Now, I do agree. It's interesting that it isn't clear until explicitly said that Vi and Powder, originally Jinx, later, are biological sisters, because Vander just sees them on a bridge and is like, come hang out with me, I guess, and becomes their dad somehow.
Dads.
We don't understand what the inciting incident that caused all these deaths in this bridge blow up was. We don't know why Vander and Silco actually got pissed at each other and Vander almost killed Silco.
Or why they were friends in the first place, or what their purpose was through all of that.
They seem to want some freedom for the pits, I guess, right? Like there was, and then it didn't go well, and Vander went to this like just give in, and Silco's secretly trying to overturn the government, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't think we even get the name of the other people on that council. You just sort of get like a stereotype of each of them. And every time you just stare at that one lady's like neck and the gears fucking moving around on it.
When is her head going to snap off?
What the fuck is going on?
And that's you only hear it when she's on camera. Yes. Wait a minute. She's in this silent room with all these other people. You should be hearing that in the background constantly.
Yeah,
it'd be really funny.
There is like a mysterious robot guy ? That's also on the council, I guess, that
who
no one
looks
really
like
questions.
General Grievous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of Star Wars prequel shit going on here.
Yeah, a lot of round tables of people
Where's
talking.
Ryan's
to each other.
1940s diner in the middle of this metropolis?
Yeah, just like regular ass.
Yeah.
But yeah, you do have to give it to like the design of all of it. Even if you have no idea what it is, you're like fucking staring at it being like, well, that guy looks cool. I have no fucking clue what his name is, why he's there, what he gives a shit about, who he's trading with, what is he trading. Like it doesn't spend any time explaining any of that to you. And yeah, when it gets to the action's hot and fun. I do think the emotional hits for our characters get there because you do get a sense of the core characters and some flashbacks and motivations. I think those are the moments that I'm like, it hits and it hits so well.
I honestly feel like the only character that I really cared about was Victor at the end of the day. Like everybody else, like I don't really give a shit about whatever you're trying to do here. But like Victor as the guy who like actually seems to be dead set on trying to do good with the technology and to like, you know, fuck what the politicians say. Like we need to do this because it's the right thing to do. And then, you know, him dealing with his illness and likely impending doom. Didn't really give a shit about his weird fangirl that
he accidentally kills.
Like looped into the plot randomly at the very end.
When she's
like,
bringing him a love letter.
Yeah.
Yeah, that part was, I don't know, like Victor being like a Frankenstein sort of, you know, reference. I could easily see the mad scientist sort of having that tragedy befall him. And I was like, oh, okay. Again, don't know anything about the games, but I'm sure somebody out there was like, just fucking call this guy Victor, make him look like this and do whatever. And then somebody that actually, like, I feel like they stood at a board with all these characters. They were like, okay, like how can we make this, what's like a little blurb that we can try to mix together? And somebody was like, what if Victor is actually kind of more like that mad scientist style? He was influenced and do this. Like, I don't know, parts of this I feel like I can see them trying to bring in trying to use tropes to their advantage to make like, but to that point, like Victor and Jace are kind of same sides of the coin, sort of. It's like Jace is the handsome, like slightly dumber, more optimistic,
much dumber
scientist, guy. And then Victor is like smarter and kind of cursed, and he's from lower class and lower standards. He's not really like, he's more in touch with actual humanity than Jace is, but Jace claims to be heralding like all of the things for humanity. And then it's like only close to the end when he kind of sort of reckons with it, but then he gets a cool ass hammer that turns into a sick ass machine gun and fucking kills everybody, including a child.
Yeah, he kills a child and Vi's like, get over it, man. We're gonna have to kill a lot more children to get what we want. Like, oh my god.
Jesus.
There is a shocking, like, beyond Kamala Harris level of not realizing that the underclass people are human beings too.
Yeah.
In this show,
like,
like
you were gonna bring this up.
Like throughout. Oh, this is classic Democratic Party bullshit, right? Like all these people on the council in the upper classes talking about how smart they are and how they're giving all these good things to the world. Meanwhile, like, either despising or forgetting that the undercity people exist at all, and just like, oh yeah, oh wow, I forgot they have feelings too. Oh but fuck, I forgot Victor's from the under. I guess you can have a person who's like smart and worthwhile coming from the underclasses.
That scene where Jace is like, "Take them away, guards." And like, is that all you do with your problems? Just have the guards take them away? And he's kind of like, well, yeah. I mean, that's just what, isn't that why guards are there?
Yeah, we have this. This is very much a duality. There's like maybe a bit too much duality repeated throughout this of characters that are on one side or the other, or reflections or dark reflections of each other, kind of over and over again. It is interesting how drastically different the two parts of the city are. We have a time skip, so the first 3 episodes. After that, we skip ahead a chunk. Hextech has gone from like an idea, I guess, that Jace had to apparently now extremely important in their trade, business, everything is now built around Hextech.
It's too big to fail, baby.
They're some sort of like portals to other parts of the world, I guess.
Help with their commerce.
They don't really
transit.
Explain how those things work, but
but they just economy good because of. That's all you need to know.
And it definitely is the stock market went up a ton. Everybody's happy, right? And then you cut to another part of the town, and it has not changed. If anything, it's slightly worse.
Yeah.
Which is that interesting, like, a good reflection on, you're right, the reality of how many people are like each new turnover of the government, and it's still the same for me. It doesn't change, no matter what somebody says. No matter what is the celebration they have?
Progress Day.
Progress Day. No matter how many Progress Day celebrations they have. That guy that's like fucking wasted. It's like, having progress day, any excuse to drink.
Oh my god, it's weird how it parallels Megalopolis, Dixon. It's
kind
really
of does.
strange.
Yeah, wow. Both movies do not have any real settings on camera. They're either fully animated or fully green screen.
Hey,
so,
wow, even more connecting it. I feel like Coppola watched this and it influenced him.
I have some questions about how the Undercity operates and what the hell is going on there. So, like, we have Silco, and he has a weird fake red eye that he has to inject something into periodically, and we never know why or what his disease is or what's the deal is there. He just has to inject this thing into his eye sometimes. He's running the underground by owning the drug trade and creating some sort of like Hulk drug, I guess.
Yes.
That like people take it and they turn into the Hulk and they freak out. And then, but we only see that happening early in the show before the time jump. And then afterward, it's just a given that like everyone's an addict on these Hulk drugs, but you never see anyone hulking. Like I'm like, wait a minute, how is this drug epidemic actually working? Does it wear off over time, and you just have smaller Hulk effects, and you need bigger doses or something?
They're micro-hulking, okay?
Yeah, is that why they're not able to do that anymore? I just had a lot of questions about, like, wait a minute, where's he getting his wealth? These drugs I don't see them working anywhere. Where is he getting all this money? And I don't know.
Yeah.
It does give you like a high, and it can heal you, which is why Silco's like jabbing it into his eye, which got fucked up when he got drowned in polluted water. Somehow, not exactly sure. I guess it was like cut or whatever when he was in the water, and somehow. And so he's like putting the shimmer to keep it up. But if you take too much of it, you Hulk out or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, you star in an Glee film.
Yeah, I guess originally, like in that first 3 episodes, it hasn't been like perfected yet. That one guy is
it's
still
much more unstable.
on
So
it.
when you cut forward, then it's like all okay, sure, we kind of got it. Just like Hextech is also stabilized in the future.
And the dude that hulks out in the first 3 episodes, I don't believe shows up after the time jump, right?
Just like straight dead.
He's dead.
They don't really
Yeah, he's just
explain what
dead.
happened to him. Yeah.
That building, fucking everybody died in there.
Including the Hulk.
I assumed the Hulk would have survived, but guess not.
Yeah.
No.
I say everybody died in there, but Vander may or may not be dead.
See,
It's not entirely
what
clear.
happened was the Hulk must let them think he's dead so that he can go on.
Right.
That's
Show up
exactly
halfway through season 2.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, there you go.
Till he can tame the beast within. That's yeah. The other thing about Silco is that he's like cornered this drug trade, and he's surrounded himself with like the shittiest people who will like betray him at any point. They like have council meetings without him. And like that's like a thing. And then he just rolls in and chokes them almost. And then he goes, I'm just going to let you live. You'll continue to work things for me. I was like, no good mob boss ever does that.
Yeah, you got to fucking kill those people, set an example.
Yeah. But I guess it kind of made for that cool scene later when that one dude continued to try to fuck with his like loyal troops.
The dude with the golden jaw.
Yeah, that sounds like a James Bond movie.
Yeah, the dude with the golden jaw.
The jaw.
Or like a girl with the dragon tattoo sequel.
Silco, you're totally mad. You'll never get away with it. You expect me to talk? I don't expect anything from you except to die and be a very cheap funeral. Anyways.
Yeah, it does seem like it's quite the extreme. They're pretty much trading in scrap, I guess, or selling drugs to each other, or selling drugs to the top side.
I don't fully understand how their mob
and that
works.
seems to be the only business. Yeah.
Silco is definitely fucking Jinx, right?
He's got a weird dad complex, so I kind of hope not.
Yeah, I don't.
But
I feel like
he
it is a dad
cares way
complex
too
thing.
much about her. Like, it's like he acts like she's his daughter, but like he's been raising her for what, 6 years or
To do
something. I don't know
crimes?
how long this time jump is, but it just seems weird to me that he's just like willing to put everything at risk. Like
He's putting
his
it all in.
whole life goal is to have, freedom of the Undercity, to segregate from the or secede from the upper city and have their own thing. And then he's just like, I'll throw it all away for my daughter, who's this girl who I have make bombs for me that I've been kind of taking care of.
He just really loves her anarchy. He likes her spark,
Yeah.
I suppose.
I think they're
maybe not. Like I was wondering about so towards the end, I guess it is the last episode where Silco meets up with pretty boy Jace and they're making a deal to make the underworld its own city, I guess, just give it its sovereignty. Yeah. To what end? I don't know why it being underneath the topsides rule matters. Like to just now we're our own thing and we can do what we want, which is what we were already doing. Yeah. I guess. I don't know.
I guess the top people can't send their cops down to loot and raid the Undercity anymore if they're independent.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess that's the difference. It does appear Silco agrees to give up Jinx. Like they kind of do a little bit of negotiating and then Jace is like, you got to give up Jinx. And he says, no, I can't. And then Jace is like, yeah, you got to. And he's like, all right, fine. And then he walks off.
Yeah.
Right? And then Jace takes the deal to the board. And Silco goes down, pours one out for Vander. And pretty much then it's like, daughters. I mean, fuck them. Right? And I think he only says after he's tied up and Jinx is going to shoot him potentially that he's like, oh, they were trying to have me give you up, but I never would do that.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't know, Silco. And then he does take the gun and point the gun at her. So I was like, it does seem like Silco was more than willing to shoot her in the back once it finally had to be that. And that's what he needed to get ahead again.
But he allowed his operation to get to the point of collapse because of her
he kept betting on her.
nature.
Yeah.
And like, if he didn't care that much, have like an irrational attachment to her, he would not have done that, right? Like if he was a good mob boss, he would have cut her off long ago.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, no, he is too attached to her because I do think and what's the other girl's name? I want to say Silva or whatever.
The one from the upper city, the guard lady.
No, the one armed his other enforcer,
his one-armed lieutenant.
Yeah, his other lieutenant or whatever. He doesn't have the same. I think if she was fucking shit up, he'd be done with her.
Yeah,
Savika.
Despite her having such loyalty to kill the dude with the golden jaw,
and actually having loyalty, actually being competent.
I love it because you can see like she has. There's that sequence where I was more interested in her character and why she had such fierce loyalty. And they don't really explain, like, I don't remember them explaining why, but it's also a blur. Because, like, they have that whole sequence where the dude with the golden jaw goes up and he's like, I think that he's not paying you well enough. I'm like, whatever, like, we can get in this deal together and let me light your cigarette for you. And then, like, when they're cornering Silco and she just pulls the blade out and fucking slices the dude, Silco even has this face of like, oh fuck, like I could have been killed. I was going to be killed. He like didn't trust her to do what was right. He didn't know how far she would take it. And then immediately after, he's like settles back in and tells that other lady that her son was killed.
Like, were you tempted?
Yeah.
He goes,
like,
were you tempted?
He doubts her, but she didn't doubt like her loyalty for him. So it's like, I want to know more about that relationship and what she's getting out of it, because he's not a dad figure to her. It's like something else going on. I don't know.
So we see her in the first 3 episodes before the time skip. Mm-hmm. She comes into Vander's bar. Vander's kind of like talking everybody down and kind of going for this pacifism angle.
Yeah. And
she gets pissed and storms out. And then after the time jump, she's now like, Silco's the one who's going to get it done.
Yeah. So she
kind
just
of what the golden jaw
Silco
guy says too. So
like,
yeah,
hey.
she's like, well, Silco actually fucking did something. Granted, did he?
Yeah. Did he?
Like, maybe he's working towards it, but the enforcers are still coming and fucking up shit. Like, I guess he has a plan.
He has concepts of a plan.
Yeah, it isn't just like sit back. Yeah, concepts of a plan. He did get one of the enforcers on his pay, so I guess that's something.
You know, corruption spreads slowly, but finally. So, yeah, that was I guess the one character that I wanted to know a little bit more about, like her, just instead of like, oh, he's gonna do it, I want that anarchy, or I want to like, you know, topple the surface dwellers kind of thing. I would like to have had more time with her, but instead all we get is like a really rad fight sequence between her and Vi that I really liked. I liked the choreography of the bar fight that they have, but again, like, yeah, just not enough time for me with that character.
Well, we'll see. I'm interested. I think that she will be back and we'll get some new character growth with her in the next season because she's lost an arm, but she's still around, it seems like. And
yeah, she wasn't killed.
I think she's going to continue. Yeah,
did not explode in something.
And hopefully there are a lot of rich dipshit characters that won't be back for season 2, given the end of season 1.
Good chance. Yeah.
Oh my God. That was honestly, I laughed when I saw that last sequence. I was both like mad, but I was also like, this is...
Fuck them.
Yeah, fuck them.
As animation, like setting aside our world building, our plot. So 2018 was Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
And then I think Mitchell's and the Machines was like the next year.
Yeah.
And so this was a couple years after that. And it still seems like somewhat people are playing in this world, but really it's Sony and Arcane. I kind of feel like they're the only ones that have found this like interesting new aesthetic to play with. And it really has just a completely different feel. They play with color quite a lot too.
Yeah.
A lot of very interesting motion. It's fun that with animation compared to a medium of just a movie in general, you can really get a lot more motion. Camera angles or whatever you want them to be, right? You can do so many different things. You can play with like changing it up, scene to scene, how things happen.
Yeah.
So this is really great, like aesthetic, really great, like detail in everything, in the people in the background. There's so many small things, and the animation, action is really great. The voice acting is stupid solid, I feel like, especially Jinx and Silco, I think are really top notch.
I would agree.
Silco's great. Yeah.
Yeah. Just that, like, he has the same tone for like everything, but that like rattliness, evilness underneath all of it or whatever, that's like great. Jinx has so much change in her voice over time, and that like leaning on crazy and stuff is really great. But even like, I mean, Vi's great.
But like Heimerdinger.
Jason's a pretty boy. Heimerdinger's an interesting,
absurd. The good Yoda of this,
Yeah.
The voice actor for Jace is terrible. Like again,
Yeah,
could not stand that character. Every time he was on screen, I was like, can we just move on?
Yeah, when he started screaming when he was firing his hammer machine gun, I laughed because I couldn't take it seriously. It was kind of wild to see. I feel like that sequence was weirdly paced, but I don't know if that's just me. Because like they're fighting, and then suddenly he's like, I've got this fucking sick hammer gun, and then he starts just like firing wildly, and he gets like the bloodlust in him. And he's like screaming and firing, and then he hits a kid. And that's when I was kind of like, that felt a little too forced. Like that should have been done in maybe a different stylistic way. I know like it was glorious kind of in like the lighting that was done and like the cuts between him and Vi fighting. But it also, I don't know, the crossfire felt like, well, duh, what'd you expect was going to happen, you fucking idiot? Like, you're just firing your gun this wildly. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I wish it would have been a little bit more dramatic and paced slower. Like they're clearing room after room or trying to like fight through these guys, and he's like punching a bunch of dudes, and then he punches a kid. Like, oh no, I can't believe I did that. And Vi's like, you got to punch the kids even harder. And like they just keep going through. You have to punch a lot of kids to get through this room. But just those moments with Jace, I felt like Jace is probably the weakest part of the show for me.
By far, I think.
Yeah. He is just like the pretty boy that has no idea how the world really works and what's going on. And yeah, he came up with some cool technology. And
he's always in a room. He's the Elon of this world. He's in a room being like, God, everybody's depending on me. I have to do this. Right, and like, and he'll go out into the world and everybody's like still enjoying their lives. And he's like, they're all suffering. Yeah. And and then he goes to the lower world and he's like, oh, these people suck. It's just the worst.
He does totally get pulled by everyone and kind of just goes with whoever the last person talked to him. Like he can... He'll listen to Heimerdinger.
It's like a golden retriever.
Yeah.
Tell me where to go.
He'll listen to Heimerdinger one moment about like, okay, yeah, we need to be safe and take this slower. And then Victor like tells him how shit needs to happen faster, and he's like, okay, like just immediately turns back around on it.
Yeah, I always do like a story in which, like there is that kind of regulation and trying to like be safe about it, and this sort of the incessant lust and hunger of capitalism, and like how it fucks up a lot of shit. Because that was like the whole thing is he's like everything for progress, and they're showing like all the little ways that people are using Arcane to do stupid shit. I feel like a lot of the tech and like there's like smaller things. There's like blue collar tech, like the big fucking hammer gauntlets that they use to mine things. And I'm like, okay, like there's probably a more efficient way than like using big old fists to do it. It looks cool, and I won't deny that. But like, there's also, I'm sure out there's somebody that's like, man, I have this like magic infused glass that like can float 2 inches in the air or some shit. Like, I just think about all the technology and advancements that they were like, we need to push harder. People need umbrellas that open themselves and like that kind of shit. But like, I'm a sucker for those kind of stories, and seeing like Jace kind of, I think that was like the most satisfaction I got out of his character, was seeing him like hit those moments where he was like made to be an ass. Like people were just like, you're just a fucking asshole right now. You've never thought about this.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it is kind of comical how Jace and Victor don't see the weapon applications for the hex tech.
yeah.
Even when we see it like almost immediately, like laser killing someone, and then they build a hammer that can shoot ? And then like right after they just whoop up on everybody, he's like, you're gonna have to give me those gloves back.
Yeah.
Right, to buy. And it's like, yeah, why did you knew that those are way more than you needed to just get shit done. Like it has just such potential for that danger.
It's like, it's like, oh, these are for mining. It's like, you know that immediately, as soon as those go out to the mining companies, there are going to be underground boxing matches with like absurd amounts of money put on that shit.
Oh my God, you know it. That's gonna those matches are gonna be awesome.
Yeah. No, I will say, as far as media that I consume, every Gundam show starts off with its technology being, for some reason, they built giant robots to do work in space. Yeah. And then all they had to do was put guns in their hands, and that became the most dangerous thing possible.
We built these nukes to blow up mountains so we could harvest the minerals. We never thought they'd be used like this.
I will say Jace does finally have a redeeming moment toward the end of the show when he comes back to the council and he's like, I've been to the Undercity and I've realized that I'm not fit to govern these people, and neither are any of you.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that's the realization that the Democratic Party has not made. That's I wish we could get there, but
yeah, and he tells them pretty much to fuck off too. He's like, I don't care what you guys think. Yeah, he finally gets a bit of a backbone, and it'll be interesting to see how post-explosion, I do think that Jace, Victor, and I can't even remember her name, Gold.
God, I hope they all die.
Yeah.
Covered in specs. I think those three are going to make it, though.
I assume Victor will survive because he's got some sort of weird arcane powers.
Oh, now he's got an arcane foot.
Yeah, and in a hand, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's slowly changing.
And our whatever the girl on the board turns gold for like a second before it happens, so there's something more with her. Plus her mom is around still banging dudes in town, so there's still that dynamic.
Yeah.
Getting a spa day.
That felt so random to me, like just looping her in like the second to last episode of the show. All of a sudden her impossibly buff mother shows up and just like hiring out as many gigolos as she can find and giving really bad advice. Great.
Yeah.
Which it seems she's always done.
Yeah.
So let's talk around the show now.
Yeah.
So the second season is coming out. It took them fucking years to get it done. It took them years to make this in the first place. The video game industry makes a fuck ton of money, and I think it's interesting that I don't think everybody necessarily realizes that, or the mass media necessarily realizes that. Like they still will do stories and like laugh about video games or whatever, and like it doesn't click with them that this is an industry that's just as, if not more, profit than movies and television. Like it's just right there along with it, and that there's still so much potential to mine within these franchises. Riot obviously wants to grow beyond the game. They kind of always have been trying to.
Didn't they like hire the Russo brothers for like $5 million and then fire them?
Yeah, then not use them.
They, like, walked away. Yeah.
They've developed some of the characters into like a K-pop group and like actually made like videos with them and toured and all like animated like the gorillas like kind of thing. This season 1, and I'm sure season 2 is even more expensive. At the time it came out, there was a lot of talk about how it was the most expensive like animation ever made or most expensive animated show ever made. Season 2, that as coming out, they went ahead and just announced that they're canceling it after that anyway. That's sort of fun to like release something and in the hype machine talk about how that's it though.
We're done.
Like not really get you excited for it. Like kind of be like, oh fuck, it's probably gonna end on a similar
cliffhanger and be done
cliffhanger that then will never fucking get resolved. But it isn't that expensive. I think that's what's funny about it is that that's the story. But when you sit down and you compare it to prestige television or to, 3 movies, it's actually cheaper because it was like 150 or 200 million to make the whole thing, which is, it's like, oh, that's really expensive for animation. But I'm like, that's one fucking Marvel movie.
Yeah.
Like
that's
not even
less than one Marvel movie.
Right. That's less than a Marvel movie. And that's not even taking into account then a Marvel movie spends that or more promoting it. And they were not spending $200 million promoting Arcane.
No.
It was not, right? And so I'm like, it's actually a fucking steal, the quality of what they got at the price. It does fall in this weird Netflix has no idea.
How do you monetize that?
How things, how things apply to their platform. Like there's just not this one-to-one relationship between the dollar they spend on something and $1 in subscribers.
I can't imagine.
Netflix just a weird place.
As an accountant, I cannot imagine what it is like at Netflix where they're trying to figure out how profitable a show is. And it's like, did it drive new subscribers or did it keep people from unsubscribing? Or like, what we spent $200 million on this, but like that has it's hard to know how much bearing that has on the amount of revenue that came in. And,
but given their choices of what they make, I know it's like they're supposed to be. I remember them talking it up how it's data driven, and they were like, "We saw that people love David Fincher, and that like they really liked these things, so we gave money to fucking him and Kevin Spacey, who's canceled now, to do these things." And like, everybody talking about like that algorithm. But now lately, it just seems like Netflix does like those fucking Wall Street guys in South Park where they like chop the chicken's head off and let it bounce around on like the bailout board or whatever. And they're like, Adam Sandler film. Like, why not? Fuck it. Like, just to prove whatever this is with Glenn Powell. Fuck it. Sure. And and I feel like they've kind of lost what they're trying to gain anymore. Now they're just like, let's, what is it? Isn't it like this weekend they're broadcasting a Mike Tyson fight with Jake Paul?
Yeah.
Like, okay. Sure, I guess. But I don't know what the fuck that's going to get you or how you're going to.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're.
Can we just get more Mike Tyson mysteries instead?
Yeah, that's really what we need.
Yeah.
They have a deal with WWE now. They're picking up wrestling. Like, they're trying to get into a little bit of like a live market too.
Oh, no.
Yeah, to see. Probably just so they can have big numbers and say, look, how many people tuned into our thing versus actual television, I think is their goal. The same thing with Prime picking up football.
Mm-hmm.
It's invading everything.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like those are the last things that you actually need to tune into and don't just stream whenever you want. So it needs to be eaten up, I guess, next.
Yeah.
It does seem like they kind of just go with this, hand a bucket of money to somebody for some deal, X number of movies, and then Netflix just seems to fucking walk away and then be surprised when they come out. Are they good? Are they bad? Do we put them at the top of our algorithm? Do we not? I contend that they don't even know how their algorithm works anymore. I'm certain they have no idea why things show up or don't show up.
The algorithm is actually the CEO, and he's played by Don Cheadle.
Yeah, that's right. Of course, yeah. I just picture somebody at Netflix that's like, sitting in the break room eating, and they're like having a really slow day, and then they have a thought, and they're like, "Did we release Power of the Dog?" Oh, we did? Okay.
Is that us?
Yeah. Okay, cool.
It has 6 views right now because we didn't advertise it or tell anyone that we released it. And you have to search like almost the whole title in order for it to
Right.
show up. When
Can't
you
do
search
power
it.
of. That's not going to get you what you think it will.
Nope.
Everything else, but yeah.
Man. Yeah.
I do wonder with Riot, like they have plenty of money. Like they weren't banking on this needing to be a success or anything. Like
That's
League of Legends is still going and still making
Yeah.
money, and they have other games based on the property that they're working on. I kind of wonder if they're gonna. Part of why they didn't necessarily explain like who the fuck this is, or they just introduce someone, is I think that in their minds, like this is just the start of, to them, a Marvel universe that they're just gonna put out. We'll put it on YouTube. We'll put it on our own fucking channel. We'll make a movie. Maybe we'll release it to theaters. We'll make comic books. We'll write a book. Like they're just gonna put stuff out, and it's all in the universe. I worry that it'll get puppet mastered where no one fucking pays attention to the last one, and the lore all completely becomes nonsense really
and then
quickly.
suddenly you're watching all of them and marathoning it so that you can talk about it on the podcast.
Yes, yeah, quality will be all over the place, and I'll lose my love for it.
That's I feel like that touches on an interesting just subject of when is it necessary, or like what makes for a good tie-in, if that. Like I was talking to Dixon before we started recording this, and I said that like I liked the show. I enjoyed my time with Arcane. But in the back of my mind the entire time I watched it, I knew that it is the precipice of a funnel to lead me to something else that is supposed to get money out of me or get me interested in part of it. And like, I'm averse to that. I like my things to be kind of self-contained. I'll watch something and I have no expectation of going into anything beyond it. And so if the lore is like really dense and I don't understand it, that's totally fine. I'm cool with it as long as it doesn't turn to me and like wink and I know that I'm supposed to go explore it later or something. And I think that was like Riot's whole intention with paying the Russo brothers, was to try to get like, how do we break into this other medium so we can bring people back to where we are, to like home base? Or like, how do we get more money in these directions now that we have all these properties and characters? It almost feels like the daily comics in a newspaper suddenly deciding that like Ziggy needs a backstory. Why don't we get Ziggy a movie? Like, let's get a franchise going for Ziggy so that we can bust out of the fucking Sunday funnies into something else.
So, John, I know that you also watched the Penguin show recently, and you had rave reviews about that.
I did.
What is the difference in your viewpoint on that level of IP capture and what Arcane is doing?
I just felt like the Penguin was doing something. It was doing a character piece. It was doing it much more involved. It did not bring Batman into it at all. There's like at the very end one scene where they show like the bat signal in the distance, and it was kind of like, okay, fine. But not once was it like, oh, you got to go watch like The Batman to know what this is all about, or you got to get ready for the Batman 2 when it comes out. And like that to me was what made it. It was self-contained, and the character of Oswald Cobblepot was so well like rounded, and Colin Farrell's like performance was fucking phenomenal, that it brought me into the emotion of the character and it made me understand them and empathize with them. And it wasn't just, wow, so this is the Penguin's origin story. Like, it wasn't like a biopic for a fictional character that I, wanted, I want to go through these steps and see all the lore that's referenced elsewhere. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that they have like plenty of things where you're like, that's from the comics, this person's from the comics, I know all that. But like Sasha and I watched it together, and Sasha was like, she bemoaned watching like the first episode for like the first 10-15 minutes, but then she was like locked in, and the rest of the show she was just all on board, like didn't even care about watching the Batman or any of this other stuff, and was just like engaged and enthralled with it. And I feel like that vision of like, it's self-contained, it's going to be, Matt Reeves had a vision for what he wanted to do for this one villain, and when you put it in like the context of the history, it can make it better too, because I always think about the Penguin's old, like 1950s Batman, 1960s Batman, where he's just a dude in a fucking tuxedo that goes meow, like all around the place with a purple hat, and you're like, all right, yeah, sure, why not? That's what the Penguin was. But this had like so many more layers added to something that felt, you know, two-dimensional before. So for me, that's like what made it good, and it's not trying to pull me into, like I said, a movie that's subsequent or a movie that came before, and it's also not trying to pull me into a video game or another medium. It just is. And it, like the characters and the writing, you can tell the people who wrote it felt strongly about how they were portraying these characters and this particular story. So I think that's what separates it.
Interesting.
By the way, how is Oswald Cobblepot not like an 18th century British factory owner?
He is in
How is he like a New York mobster? That doesn't make any sense.
He's a descendant. The Cobblepots have been in Gotham for like forever. So he's like a descendant of a Cobblepot.
No, he's like a Charles Dickens character. There's no way. You can't be in Gotham running the underworld with that name. It just doesn't work.
That's probably why they don't actually call him Cobblepot at all in the show. They call him Oswald Cobb. I don't know if they like shortened his name or they made it a little bit more like that, but it makes more sense rather than people calling him Cobblepot. But yeah,
it's interesting though. I'm not entirely sure that their intent is to drive to the games. I'll actually say if I think at the top level, like Riot CEO level, it's absolutely like, let's just make as much shit as we can so we can sell shirts in Hot Topic. And because that actually has a good profit margin. And that it's like the game is just the backbone that it started from, but there's like, it's just a media empire. Like, right. Like with Marvel, the movies aren't to drive you to the comics, and the comics aren't necessarily to drive you to the movies, or DC either. Right. It's just sort of like, they just have their fingers in a shit ton of stuff at this point. Right. Whether it's like, you know, there are video games for Marvel and DC that also have nothing to do with the other Marvels. There's TV shows. There's I think that's kind of the thought that they have here. Yeah. I will say the creators, I feel like, actually sat down and were like, hey, here's the characters they'll let us play with, and let's make something out of it. Like, I think that's what's interesting is I think they went to try to actually make something good. Castlevania is kind of the other thing that I think it's not really driving you to the games either. Like, it really is like, there's these interesting characters that came from the games. Let's actually just fucking flesh them out and make an interesting story that mostly follows the games. Again, those games have story, ... question mark, maybe slightly more than League of Legends within the games, but less in the media around it.
Yeah. But I mean, there's like, League of Legends has been around for a while, but it's still like a hot thing. Castlevania feels more niche now in terms of
it kind of has been off for a while. Yeah,
and I think that's why, like, for me, like Marvel too, it is like a certain saturation in the market of like what you're doing in the different mediums. Like even Star Wars has like an infinite number of novels that have been written about it and comics that have been made for it. And it's just like a brand's evolution, and I think that's like my aversion to something is like when a brand starts to spill over into a new medium, I get a little like about it and how I feel. And to me, it feels like there is more of like a horizontal cognizance with the League of Legends with Arcane, where it's like, oh, well, it's like, it looks like the video game and like they have some tie-ins and stuff. Like Matt Reeves' Batman series, like his world, his vision of Batman is strictly stuck to like the film medium. And I don't think there's a way to like transition it across to other pieces of, like, they could make a comic about it now if they want to, which is, you know, self-reflexive and masturbatory. But
so like Injustice.
Yeah, basically. There's that kind of thing. If they really wanted to. But like Injustice even feels like it's Zack Snyder's DC, and you're like, okay, you're spilling over.
Yeah. But it's like they like take the game and then make the game into a comic and then into a cartoon and then back into a game, and then it's
Street Fighter the movie, the game, and whatever the fuck else happens with it. But I think that's like I'm not discrediting or minifying and reducing like what Arcane is, the way that it's written, the like beauty that is put in. There's a lot of fucking effort put into the show, but there is still that, like, the CEO was shopping around, how can I break into this other medium for so long that I can't shake that when I'm watching it, where I'm just like, and so when it ended on this cliffhanger where like the entire council is going to be blown up and they really play that piece up, and they're like, you're just gonna have to, stick around for like the next season. That's when I was like, I'm just like kind of done right now. I don't know. I don't know if I want to watch season 2. So
I think it's an interesting balance between sometimes when this is done, they're trying so hard to wink, wink, nod, nod at you all the time for the people that are like, and there are a lot of references in this, but not so on the nose as so many other times that something
it's not like any of the Star Wars shows where like Luke Skywalker turns around and there's like a 10-second pause for you to applaud that you love it, that you
remember
reference.
this, remember that. Yeah. Yes, exactly. The Star Wars is just chock full of that. Remember this, remember that, remember this. Like, and it can't get away from that.
Yeah.
And I don't think that it's to the extreme of Marvel properties where every single one is trying to connect you and keep you in the Marvel MCU and all of the connections that are necessary. We finished Agatha All Along recently,
Sorry.
I was getting sour on until I got positive on it, until I kind of got sour on it.
That sounds like most Marvel things.
It kind of had like a good little middle chunk that was enjoyable in spite of everything else around it. But then it definitely ended with that like, okay, and now we're going to some other property, aren't we? Like, you're trying to tag me to the next thing. And I feel like this is that kind of like just almost balanced where there are some references, so if you're coming from the other mediums, you can enjoy it. Or if you go to those mediums, you'll then see the connections. It isn't really tying to the other stuff in a way that you are like trying to be driven to that, because if you're watching Arcane, you're like, oh, I enjoy these characters in the story, the game is not going to do it for you. Like, it's not going to give you anything. Where I do think if you watch Last of Us and then you go play the game, you'll just kind of, it's sort of like watching the movie and then reading the book. You get some more nuance or something a little bit different out of it, but you're still going to it for kind of the same purpose. Castlevania probably fits that perfect bill because it really isn't trying very hard to reference the games. In fact, it often like tweaks and changes things just because it needs to for its story, and it really does nothing to send you to the games because they're just no similarities really.
Yeah, I don't know. Just the transition between different mediums for a property, it's something that like just kind of irks me. I don't know. I like to see when a franchise is, if somebody wants to take a brand and fuck shit up with it or do something weird, like Greta Gerwig doing Barbie was it had interesting elements to it, because you're like, how are you gonna make a Barbie movie and like actually make it kind of engaging and not just like, I'm Barbie. And she kind of got away with it, but there's like a lot of faux elements to it that are like, hey, even Mattel CEO said it's not a feminist piece, and like somehow everybody was like, yeah, that's kind of true, I guess. And it's like, yeah, it said something without kind of saying something at the same time, but
it's a capitalist piece, baby.
That's right.
Yeah.
They called Barbie a fascist. How do you like that?
We're going to be moving so much plastic.
I think like, or maybe something like Detective Pikachu. Like, it's kind of not really related to any of the other stuff, and just sort of plays with the
weird
world
outlier.
a little bit.
No, it's trying to pull you into the Ryan Reynolds cinematic universe.
Oh, yeah,
you gotta stay
Dixon
the
nailed
fuck
it.
away from that. Yeah.
You want to stay away from the Ryan Reynolds event horizon, which consists of Van Wilder, Detective Pikachu.
Yes. Now on the other side of the election. Now on the other side of the election, I'm so happy I no longer have to see election ads all the time, but I still have to see Mint Mobile ads.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
They just never go away.
Ryan, have you watched Werewolves Within yet?
No, I still haven't watched
the best video game adaptation movie with the cell phone tie-in. Also, the AT&T woman is one of the leads.
Oh, perfect!
Right.
That's like how Flo
but
from
she's
Progressive.
She's quite good in it.
Flo from Progressive was in Mad Men, and that was a great tie-in.
Oh, really?
Yeah, although she was not doing like a Progressive ad or anything. She was just a telephone operator in the 1960s.
Nice.
Well,
we'll go. All right. I think we've exhausted within the show and around the show and all that. John, would you recommend Arcane, or what's your preferred way for someone to watch Arcane?
No, I mean, I would recommend Arcane. yeah, if you're like looking for a TV show to get into, especially the fact that they just announced season 2's canceled, definitely. I'm like, hey man, you don't have to commit a ton of time to this. If you find season 1 great, then you can watch season 2 and be done with it. But I thought visually, I really enjoyed it. If somebody's looking for their fix after, while we're waiting on whatever Spider-Verse movie is coming next, Spiders Verse movie 3
for the Nick Cage Spider Noir
oh
series.
yeah, aren't they doing a live action Spider Noir?
Allegedly.
I saw screen photos.
Yeah.
I think.
It's in development. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're waiting for that, this could be a fun time if you're really into like the visual razzle dazzle of it, and you don't mind not knowing what the fuck some of the world building is. You can just, as the dad and serious man would say, accept the mystery. Then you might enjoy this. And if you're a big Imagine Dragons fan, then yeah, you'll definitely love the opening title card and some of the sequences where they play their songs.
No Imagine Dragons in season 2, so
they couldn't renew the license.
yeah, I
Who did
moved
they
on
get?
to somebody else.
They got cheap. They couldn't afford them anymore.
They got Billie Eilish now. She's in everything. Yep.
Dixon, would you recommend Arcane?
I'm really on the fence
on
with
the
this. I think there are a lot of things that are really good in it. The animation is great, particularly in the action sequences and some of the more interesting editing sequences that they do. Silco's Jeremy Irons thing that he's doing is pretty good. There's some stuff that I liked. Overall, I think I have to come down on that. No, I don't recommend this. Having said that, I think I am probably more critical of this than the average person going to Netflix trying to find a show that eats some time and they can enjoy. I think most people probably would enjoy this. I had a lot of problems with the plot and the characters and like, what the fuck is this? Why are they not explaining things that I think if you don't get caught up on those and if you just want to have a good time and be visually stimulated, like it's a good, it does a lot of things well. But for me, I wouldn't recommend it if you're like wanting like a solid cinematic experience where you're really invested in the characters. I think there are better options.
Yeah, I recommend it. Obviously, animation fans, 100%. I don't think anyone who's like into animation would be disappointed by this in any way.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think sci-fi fantasy, somebody that's pretty just into sci-fi or fantasy, because this is in that same Star Wars where it's kind of like, which is it? What is it?
There's tech, but it's magic, but it's tech too, and there's science.
Yeah, it doesn't really try to explain the stuff necessarily.
It's basically just magic at the end of the day.
Are there gods in this world again, or no? I don't remember if they talk about real gods being anywhere.
I don't think they
Professor
talk about
Furby, is he God?
Oh yeah, he could be.
He does live for a long time, yeah.
Yeah.
I think, though, like, if you look at probably most sci-fi fantasy television shows, they don't really give you a lot of the explanation, so you'd be pretty comfortable
with this. Or they give
with
you too much of the explanation.
Or it's way too much, and then it becomes a whole
Thank
other
God
thing.
they weren't all powered by midichlorians, this whole society.
Honestly, I think the length plays to its strength. I think it's only 9 episodes. It's essentially 3 movies, and it is kind of split into these 3 chapters. It's especially noticeable from the first 3 episodes.
Yep.
Really do leave and then jump in time. There's this separation. And the way they're releasing season 2 is kind of the same deal. There's 3 episodes out now, and then there's a break, and then the next 3 and the next 3. So you can eat it in those little chunks too. I think it's pretty palatable that way because you can kind of just watch them in a day or a couple nights and pretty easy to consume. So I think it's really good. It's interesting. It's an interesting look at like what you can do with an IP without having to just fucking phone it in or
Chris Pratt.
Pull Chris Pratt in or
Sorry,
what
he's
have
in
you.
Season 2, Ryan.
Yeah.
As Garfield.
He's now Jace. He's now Jace, and it's even more
Jace's cat,
horrible to
Garfield.
listen to and look at Jace.
And he talks about Jesus.
I hate progress days.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I have been your host tonight, Ryan King. Joining me, as always,
John Garcia. There's no magic in the world, folks. I'm sorry.
Also with us,
Michael Dixon, thanks for putting up with our bullshit.
Hey there, movie buffs, TV toughs, and all listeners in between. John here from the Afterthoughts podcast. I just wanted to drop in at the end of this episode and say thanks for listening. If you've got afterthoughts of your own to share, hit us up. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at The Afterpod, or jump into a conversation on our Discord server. You can find info for this and more at theafterpod.transistor.fm. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.